Hi, everyone, and I would like to welcome you to this IDP IELTS writing webinar, and let us uncover tips to maximize your writing score. Again, hi, everyone. My name is Patrick Gonzalez. I'm from the Philippines, and I will be your host for this monthly IDP IELTS writing workshop with our returning IELTS expert, Miss Jackie, and of course, my co-host from the first one is from IDP Indonesia. We have William. Can you say hi and greet our participants in your own local language?
Hello everyone, I'm William from IDP Indonesia.
Okay, thank you, William. Next, we have from IDP Myanmar, we have Chow. Say hi to our participants.
ဟုတ်အားလုံးပဲမင်္ဂလာပါအမကကြတော့ဒီ IDP မြန်မာရန်ကုန် campus က6ဖြစ်ပါတယ်သိချင်တာလေးရှိလို့ရှိရင်ဒီအမတို့ဒီ live session ရဲ့ပေါ့နော်ဒီနောက်ဆုံးအပိုင်းကြလို့ရှိရင် question and answer လေးရှိရဲအဲ့ဒီမှာအမတို့တခုတစ်ယောက်ချင်းစီကိုပြန်ပြီးတော့ဖြေချပေးပါမယ်နော်ဟုတ်ကျေးဇူးတင်ပါတယ်ရှင် thank you ပါ
Okay, thank you, Chow. And we have Sarah from IDP Singapore.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah from Singapore and also from the Philippines. Mabuhay, Philippines. Salamat sa pag-join sa amin ngayong gabi. Kung meron kayong mga tanong, chat lang kayo. Salamat!
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Okay, for first-time joiner, let me give you some quick information about our IELTS expert. Miss Jacqueline Fisher has been an IELTS teacher and trainer for more than a decade. Armed with an in-depth understanding of IELTS, she has helped hundreds of people from across Asia to prepare well for it. Today, Miss Jackie will be walking you through IELTS writing for both academic and general training. So keep your eyes open for some amazing tips. Without further ado, let us pass over to Miss Jacqueline. Welcome back, Miss Jackie.
Thank you very much, Patrick. That introduction is very nice. Always makes me feel a bit shy, but thank you. I'm very happy to be here, and it's really great to see everyone joining in this evening. I've been looking at the chat, and we've got people from all over the world joining us. I see someone from Iran, from Papua New Guinea, and of course from across the region as well. I see people from Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, many countries. So welcome. Thanks for joining me tonight to explore all the exciting parts of IELTS writing. We're really going to get into the nitty-gritty of how you prepare and do well in your writing. Because really, usually that is the test that most people are most worried about. You know, IELTS is always a bit misleading because it's called the IELTS test, but you have to do 4 tests, don't you? So tonight we're really focusing on the writing. So I've been working around IELTS for, I don't know, almost 15 years, I think. So I hope that I'll be able to answer your questions, and really this is your webinar, so feel free to please put your questions in the chat box or the Q&A box, and mostly my wonderful colleagues will be able to answer those for you, and any that they can't, I will answer at the end. Yeah, so we'll definitely have time for you to ask all your questions at the end. So let's get into things. So yeah, as I mentioned, you can put the, you know, we want it to be interactive. I will also ask you questions, but please put your questions in the chat if you have them. If you put them in the Q&A box, I won't really be able to see them so easily, but my colleagues will definitely answer them for you. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of the writing, I just would like to find out a little bit about you. Oh, I just want to tell you too, it looks like I'm in Australia. That's just because I'm feeling a bit homesick. I'm actually in Singapore with Sarah. I mean, not in the same place, but we're both in Singapore. But I don't know if you can tell from my strange accent, but I was born in Australia, although I've lived in Asia for most of my life. All right, so let's see. Patrick, could we have the first poll? I just want to find out a bit about you and, you know, why you're taking the IELTS, which IELTS you're doing, and the band that you need. So I think we've got a poll that we might run. Is that ready? If not, oh, here it comes. Yay. Okay, so just a few poll questions, like have you taken the test before? What's the minimum score you need? Of course, everyone wants the highest possible. I understand that. But what's the minimum that you need? And then which test you're planning to take, academic or general? So, okay, good. So I'll just give you a moment to answer those. So people still coming in, welcome. Oh, so you're taking academic tests next week. Okay, so hopefully you'll get some tips from this workshop. If you are taking your test very soon, between now and then, you should really start practicing like full tests to get used to the timing and doing the test time. Yeah, okay, so we'll just let the poll run a moment. Oh, your test is tomorrow. Yeah. Okay, so hopefully you've been doing some prep and this might just give you those last bits, those last tips that you need. Yeah. Okay, so quite a few people taking it this weekend as well. All right, so I'll just end the poll and let's have a look. So most people have not taken the test, but some people have. So if you have and you have questions, you know, why didn't I get that score? What did I do wrong? Feel free to ask those questions. And we see in terms of band scores, yeah, most people need between this 7 and 8. That's normal. A lot of people need that kind of band score, but quite a lot of people need a 6, 7. Yeah, an 8 and 9 is a very high score. So I wonder if that's the minimum you need or if that's what you want. Because in IELTS 2, 9 is perfect. There's no perfect 10, it's perfect 9. So yeah, and then, oh, quite a lot more doing the academic. But don't worry, we'll be talking about general and academic this evening. Okay, great. So thanks for letting me know about that. Now, tonight, as I mentioned, we're focusing on the writing. So what do you already know about the writing? How many things do you need to do in the writing test? How many things do you need to do? How many tasks in your writing? 2, that's right. And how long is the writing test? It's an hour. Okay, good. So it's 1 hour. And the writing test is the last one that you do. When you do the IELTS, you do the listening, reading, and writing in this order. So the writing is the last one. So you might be a little bit tired because there's no real break between the 3 tests. Okay, so what do you do, these 2 tasks? If you're doing academic, your task 1 is you have to describe something visual, like a chart or a graph, using words. And then your task 2, you write an essay. And then if you're doing the general test, task 1, you're going to be writing a letter. And then task 2, again, is an essay. Okay, so that's what we're going to be covering tonight. Okay, nowadays we have an option, right? We can do the test computer delivered, or you can do old school paper-based in some places. So some countries don't offer both options, but some do. So it depends on your country. So I'm curious, once again, can you tell me in the chat, which one are you planning to do? Computer delivered or paper-based? Computer? I see quite a lot of computers. Okay, good. So for the writing, many of us might prefer doing it on computer because many of us are quite good at typing these days. I do have to tell you though, I do see one paper popping up. There's no spell check and there's no grammar check. Rats. Yeah, but that wouldn't be fair to the paper-based, right? But on the computer delivered, there is a word count, which we don't have on paper-based. The other thing to remember is if you do your writing computer delivered, you have to do all the tests on computer. Yeah, you have to do listening, reading, and writing all on the computer. Yeah. Okay, so people often ask me, well, which one is easier? Which one should I do? And really that depends on you and your skills. If you're really comfortable on the computer, you can use a mouse, you're comfortable, you know, navigating on a computer screen, then computer is fine. But if all of that is very stressful to you, then don't do it because it just adds another layer of stress for you, which you don't need. So people often ask me which one I would do. And interestingly, probably because of my age, if I had a choice, I'd do paper-based. Because I prefer to read. Of course, typing, I'd rather do it on computer, but I prefer reading on paper and I prefer doing the listening on paper. That's just me. So that means I have to do the writing on paper as well. So you've just got to think about your own skills, but it's the same test, the same content. And the difference also is usually with the computer delivered, you do get your results faster within 3 to 5 days, and you can usually do it more often as well. All right, so let's get into the writing. Now, when the examiners look at your writing, they only care about 4 things. So what are those 4 things that they're looking at? They actually don't care about how neat it is, as long as they can read it. It doesn't matter if it's messy or has cross out, but what are the 4 things they look at when they read your writing? Do you know? You can type in the chat what any of those 4 are. Any ideas? Any ideas? Grammar, yes, they're looking at your grammar. You are right. Lexical resource, so that means your vocabulary, yes. They're looking at the words that you write. Coherence, yeah, so is it well structured? Yes, linking of ideas, that comes under coherence as well. That's right. And there's one more, yes, task achievement. So basically what that means is, did you answer the question? Did you stay on the topic? I want to give you a big secret about the whole of the IELTS exam, all the tests. People do well when they follow the instructions. So a lot of people, because they're nervous and they panic, they don't read the instructions properly and they make a lot of unnecessary mistakes. So please, for IELTS, just follow the instructions, do what they tell you, and that will help you a lot with IELTS. Okay, so let's just talk about these 4 things. So first one, task achievement or task response. That means, did you answer the question? Did you stay on the topic? Did you have good reasons and examples? Next one, cohesion and coherence. So this means, this is thinking about your structure. So in writing, it means you need to have paragraphs. That's the first thing. Please have nice, clear, separate paragraphs. Each paragraph is one idea. Then someone was saying about linking words. So we need it to flow. Yeah, so that the examiner, when they read it, it flows nicely. So we want our linkers, like firstly, in addition, on the other hand, all those kinds of linking words to make it flow. All right. Next, we have the lexical resource, which is your vocab. So, you know, if you want a band 7, so 7 means good in terms of IELTS, and 8 is very good, 9 is perfect. So if you want a 7, you need to be good with your vocab. So you need to use some more unusual words. Yeah, not the same old like sort of good, bad, nice, that kind of thing. You need to use some more unusual words, and you need to use them correctly as well. And then it's also your spelling comes under here. So many of us have bad spelling now because of spell check. So there's no spell check. So we have to work on our spelling as well. And then the last one, we talked about your grammar. So grammar has these 2 parts to it. So we've got to try to be correct. So if you want a 7, it's about 70 to 75% correct. Yeah, so you can make a few little mistakes, but not too many mistakes. But there's this other word that's important, range. So what does that mean? So if I say, I like Singapore, it rains a lot. Yeah, it's been raining a lot today in Singapore. So those 2 sentences, were they correct? I like Singapore, it rains a lot. They were correct, those sentences, but they're very simple sentences and that won't really get you a high score for grammar. However, if I join those sentences, although I really love Singapore, it does tend to rain a lot. Oh, now I have a much longer sentence with 2 parts. This is what you want to do. Okay, so words like although, however, despite, whereas, even though, these are all very good to use in your writing. Also, if sentences, you know, if global warming continues, the whole of Singapore might be underwater. I hope not, but like an if sentence like that is good to use. More complex grammar. That's what we're after for a higher score. Now, why are we going on about this? Because this is how they mark you, the examiner. They mark each of these 4 out of 9. So to get your 7, just say you want 7, you've got to have 7 for task answering the question, 7 for the structure, 7 for the vocab, and 7 for the grammar. So you've got to keep thinking about these 4 things as you write. Yeah. And so quite a lot of people get 6.5 for their writing because maybe they've got good, they answered the question well. They had good structure and linkers. They had good vocab, but too many grammar mistakes. So 7, 7, 7, 6. Then when you take an average, that's 6.5. So it's a numbers game. Yep. So I wanted to kind of focus on that. And we'll keep thinking about these 4 as we go through today. All right. So first of all, we're going to talk about general task 1. Okay. So if you're doing academic, please feel free to go and grab a drink and a snack and come back in about 10, 15 minutes and we'll move on to academic task 1. So this is just for the general people now. Okay, so general people, can you remind me what you're writing for your task 1? Remember, you have to do 2 tasks in the writing. Your task 1, what are you writing? A letter, yes, kind of weird. We don't really write letters anymore, but that's what we're doing. So how many words and how long should you spend? 150 words. This is just minimum. Of course, you can write more, but you must write 150. And 20 minutes is what they tell you to spend the amount of time. Now, nobody controls the time. You have to manage the time. Nobody will tell you, okay, move to task 2 now. You have to keep an eye on the time and manage the time yourself. Okay, but they suggest 20 minutes. Why? Because it's not worth so much. So with the task 1, we just want to get it done, give the examiner what they want, then move on to task 2, which is more important. Okay, but we're on task 1 now. So let's have a look. This is what it looks like. It always, so it tells you how long and how many words. It always tells you how to start. Begin, dear sir or madam. Please don't change that. Just follow the instructions. So dear sir or madam. Okay, so then it's always laid out like this. So we have the description, what we're talking about. There have been some problems with public transport in your area. Then it tells you what to do. Write a letter to the manager of the public transport company. Then it gives you these smaller tasks that you must cover. Describe the problems, explain how problems are affecting the public and the changes that could be made. Yeah, so it's always set out like this. And you have 3 jobs when you do the letter. So first job is you have to work out how you're starting and who you're writing to. So how are we starting? Dear sir or madam, and who are we writing to? Manager of the public transport company. So this will tell us our tone, and the tone is very important. So what's our tone here? Do we know that person? No, right? It's not a friend. So what's our tone going to be? Yeah, more formal. Yeah, so I think like semi-formal. I'm thinking of like professional and business-like, because remember, you're writing this letter, like imagining that you're living in England or Australia or wherever. They're not as formal as Asia. Asia is more formal. Okay, so don't be too formal because that tone will not sound natural. The secret with the letter is that you have to write it like you would really send it, like a real letter in that country. So it must sound natural. Okay, so yes, so first is tone. Next, we work out the purpose. Why are we writing the overall purpose? Usually we can say it with 2. And usually the purpose is up here. I mean, the purpose is always up here in the description. So why, in this one, why are we writing? To do what? To share about problems with public transport. That's why we want to write the letter. Yeah, so you always have to work out the purpose. And then the third job is carefully look at the bullet points because we have to cover them properly. So describe the problems. So we can't talk about one problem, can we? We have to talk about 2 or more problems, probably 2. How the problems are affecting the public and suggest changes. Again, more than one change. Okay, so that's always our job with the letter. We have to have the purpose because that's going to be at the top. We cover all the bullet points fully and we make sure we have the right tone. Okay, so let's look at a model. So remember, we start dear sir or madam. So the first paragraph should have the purpose. Can you see the purpose? They've said the purpose in the top there. Can you see it with a 2? Can you spot it? I am writing to draw your attention. Yeah, that's the purpose. That's why we're writing. Okay. Yeah. And notice this first sentence, I am a resident of Newtown. This is a nice way to start when it's a semi-formal letter. You say who you are, but you don't say your name. You don't need to say your name because it's at the bottom, right? But you just say some background about yourself. I am a resident of Newtown and I am writing to draw your attention to recent problems with public transport in our suburb. So nice way to start, some background and the purpose. Next paragraph, we have to talk about bullet point 1, don't we? The problems. Now notice that we're using some linking words. Remember, we have to use linking words for the cohesion. Can you spot the 2 linking words to introduce the 2 problems? Can you see them? I'll type in the chat. Briefly, yeah, that's the first one. And furthermore, yeah, so it's good to use these linking words in your letter. So briefly, the road works have led to long delays. So that's one problem. Furthermore, new weekend bus timetable has reduced frequency. Yeah, so good. There are 2 problems and they sound real, don't they? And notice this dramatically reduced. We want to use some interesting vocab, but that sounds real. Okay, so the next bullet point is the next paragraph, and that's the effect. Can you see this as a topic sentence? It says what the paragraph is about. The effect of these actions becomes very obvious during peak hours on weekends and busy shopping hours on Saturday. High level of public concern. Now here's the effects. Public transport users in Hill Road find it takes 20 minutes more to travel the length. Another linking word for the second effect. As well, shoppers who travel by bus to shop in Newtown find it's not worth the trouble, leading to a drastic downturn in retail trade. Now there's some nice vocab here. Can you spot some nice phrases? A bit more unusual, but still sounds real. Can you spot? There's a few. Yeah, but with the drastic sounds even better. Drastic downturn, nice. Can you spot any other ones that sound quite nice, the vocab? Not just common words. How about high level of public concern? I mean, you could say people are worried. That's okay, but this sounds better, doesn't it? There is a high level of public concern. Worth the trouble. Yeah, that's also nice. Good. And so our third bullet point, the suggestions, more than one. Can you spot the linking word to introduce the second suggestion? Here's the first suggestion. May I suggest that buses be rerouted along Great East Road until roadworks are complete? I would also, again, we have a linking word, recommend a return to the weekend timetable. I'm sure both these steps, yep. So that's the suggestions. And the last paragraph, we point to the next step. What's going to happen next? I look forward to hearing from you regarding my suggestions. Don't forget to sign off because it's a letter. So dear sir or madam, the sign off, like usually the sign off is yours faithfully. If you want to use yours sincerely, it's also okay. And then don't forget the name because it's a letter. Okay, so that's really how we do the letter, usually 5 paragraphs. The first paragraph is the purpose. Then bullet point 1, bullet point 2, bullet point 3, point to the next step, sign off. Okay, so it's really not that difficult doing the letter. Now, some people forget, like they might leave out the suggestions. They just forgot that bullet point. Don't do that because you'll end up with a 4 under your task achievement. You don't want that. And then make sure your tone stays the same. So if it's more formal letter, the language should be more formal. You can't just suddenly change like, see you later, love you, or something. It will sound really weird, right? You have to keep the tone the same. Yeah, you have to sign, someone's asking if you have to sign the letter. You put your name at the bottom. You don't have to put your signature, but just write your name at the bottom of the letter. I mean, you can use your own name or you can make up a name, all fine. Anything's fine. Yeah, so if you don't keep the tone, if the tone varies, you'll get a 5 under task achievement. That's why tone is really important. Okay, so really it's just these steps. We have to work out the tone, the purpose, who we're writing to. Think about look at all the bullet points carefully, and then usually 5 paragraphs for the letter. So let's have a look, like working out what the purpose is, the overall purpose, and it can be a bit challenging. So here's an easy one. What is the overall purpose here? You want your friend to come to your partner's surprise birthday party. Usually we can say the purpose with to. So what's our purpose here? Why are we writing the letter? To do what? To invite someone. Yeah, so that's pretty straightforward. Yeah, to invite someone to a surprise party. Now, what about this one? You recently stayed in a hotel and the service was unsatisfactory. What's that purpose? Yeah, to complain, but be careful when we write a complaining letter because it still has to sound real. If you make it sound like really ridiculous and really angry, would you really send a letter like that in real life? No, right? You still have to be professional. So be careful with complaining. You can think of it like expressing disappointment. I mean, you can be very cool, but make sure it sounds real. That's the trick with the letter. Now, sometimes the tone is not quite right. So this is the one about inviting someone to a surprise party. What do you think about the tone here? Dear Anne, I request the pleasure of your attendance at the birthday party that I will host for my longtime partner. I would very much appreciate it if you could keep this invitation a secret, as it will be a surprise party. Yeah, Artie, I agree. It's too formal for your friend. Okay, maybe if it was a very formal event, but this is just a surprise party for your boyfriend or girlfriend. So the tone is too formal. So have a look at this tone. Dear Anne, I hope all is well. I'm not sure if you remember, but Danny's big birthday is around the corner. Yes, he's going to hit the big 40. He says he doesn't want a party, but that's too bad because I'm hoping you'll be part of a super secret surprise bash I'm organizing for him. Can you feel the difference in this tone? This is much better tone. So this one, it sounds like when you get this more informal tone, try to write like you're speaking, but use full sentences. You have to use proper sentences. Yeah, that's the secret with the informal tone. And you can use this, I'm, he's, doesn't, what we call contractions. You can use that, but make sure it's not too formal. It has to sound like you're talking. Okay, now what about this one? This is about the complaining to the hotel. I'm very sorry about this, but I really do have to complain about the service I received at your hotel last week. Yeah, hi, Huyen. We are going to talk about academic. Don't worry. It's not fair to the general if I don't go through the general. Yeah, don't worry. You'll get your turn, okay? So just chill. Yeah, we've got bit longer here, and then we'll move on to academic. Don't you worry about that. I mean, if you were doing the general test, you'd want me to talk about this, wouldn't you? So, okay, so what's weird about this tone? What do you think? What's strange about it? It may be a little bit informal, but it's also too apologetic. It's weird. Like the hotel did something bad, but you're apologizing. That doesn't sound natural. So have a look at this one. I'm writing to express my disappointment about the service I received during my stay at your hotel last week. Can you see how that's much more cool, detached, like kind of like, you know, very professional, but not happy? Yeah. Don't worry, we'll get there before. Well, we only started it. Okay, I'm sorry, but I can't do it now because this is the way that it goes. In half an hour, yeah, okay, I'll do my best, all right? All right, but we will get to academic soon in another maybe 5-10 minutes. Okay, so now sometimes people are worried, right, that they have to, how many words do you have to write? You have to write 150, that's right. So some people worry that they're not going to hit that that word limit. So they add some unnecessary information, which like makes it sound strange, because remember, it has to sound natural. Okay, so see here, this one, what is weird and unnecessary? Have a quick read and you tell me in the chat. What's the, yeah, too personal, but see this bit about, I'd like to apply for the position right next to the article on talking to your plants. Is that necessary? Would you really put that in your letter if you were applying for a job? A bit weird, right? They're trying to add more words so they hit their word limit, but please don't do that. Okay, and also, yeah, maybe the part about your favorite book might be a bit much in a job application. Yeah. Okay, good. So remember we said, so just remember that. Don't add weird things just to make it hit 150. You do have to use your imagination a little bit. You have to have some of your own ideas, but it still has to sound real and natural. Yeah. Okay, so sometimes you have a different type of letter. So let's do our 3 steps here. You're going on holiday, you would like to ask a friend to look after your house. Write a letter to your friend. In your letter, explain the situation. Tell your friend what needs to be done while you're away. Arrange to meet your friend. Okay, so remember our first step is to look at how you start and who you're writing to. So dear ... and write to your friend. Okay, so here, if it's ... you have to make up a name. So you could say Jane or Freddie or whatever, but it's a friend, right? So you wouldn't say Mr. Smith, would you? Now, letter to your friend. So what's our tone? That's our first step. What's our tone? What's our tone going to be? Informal or casual, that's right. Now, next step is our purpose, which we can say with 2. You're going on holiday and you would like to ask a friend to look after your house. So the purpose is up here. What's your purpose? To do what? To what do you want to do to your friend? To ask for help, exactly. To ask for a favor, yeah, that's right. Now let's look at the bullets. They're quite simple this time. Explain the situation, tell your friend what needs to be done, and arrange to meet the friend. Okay, so let's have a look. Now, in some ways, when you get an informal one, you don't know. You might get an informal or you might get a formal. The informal is a bit harder, I think, because we wouldn't really write a letter, would we? We'd send a WhatsApp message. But like I said before, the secret is imagine that you're talking and just write in full sentences. Don't use any bullet points or any texting language or anything like that. It has to be full sentences. So dear Jane, now our sign off, I've put cheers. That's kind of very Australian way. What else could you put? If you don't like cheers, you could put bye for now, see you soon, lots of love. All of those are fine. Yeah. Okay, because it's just your friend, right? Regards, yeah, Emily, regards is a bit formal for a friend in a Western context. This is what I mean. Regards is what you would use in an email at work for a client or something. But for a friend, regards is a bit formal and your friend would be like, ooh, why are you saying that to me? Yeah, so I think bye for now. Much love is great. See you soon. Big hugs. All of that is fine. Okay, so let's go through our bullets. So how is everything? Oh yeah, remember we have to have our purpose. Now in the informal letter, if you say, dear Jane, I am writing to ask you a favor. Could you look after my house? How do you think Jane will feel? It'll be weird, right? Jane will be like, whoa, so blunt, so direct. So when it's an informal letter, you have to be a bit indirect with the purpose. So see how it's done here. So you can have a greeting. Dear Jane, how is everything? I hope you're having a great week. As you know, I'm heading off to England. So you need more background. I'm heading off to England next Monday for 3 glorious weeks. I'm wondering if you might be free to do me a huge favor while I'm away. I'd be super grateful if you could look after the house. Can you see how you build up to the purpose? Because when you're writing informal, you can't be so direct and blunt like that. It's weird, doesn't sound natural. Yeah. Okay, so there really isn't much to do. Don't worry, they're fantastic. If you could feed my cat. He can get in and out of the house on his own. So all you need to do is leave some food and water in his bowls each day. Give him a bit of a pat now and then if he's feeling lonely. So you see, you have to make up some of your own ideas, but it has to sound real. While you're at the house, it would also be wonderful if you could check my plants and give them a drink if they're looking droopy or parched. So trying to put in some more interesting vocab, droopy, parched. Can you notice that there's some interesting grammar as well? So if, while, trying to get these more complicated kinds of grammar in there. So would you be free to meet on Wednesday so I can give you the keys? I'm pretty sure you don't have any classes that evening. We could also grab a bite to eat, my treat, of course. Perhaps we could try that new Moroccan restaurant. I know you love a fiery tangine. Okay, so this is when they're going to meet. Yep. And notice these coulds. This is considered more complex grammar. Could and could here. Could you give me a call to let me know if there won't be too much of a hassle? It would be great to see you. Okay, so can you feel the tone? Really sounds like someone's talking. And there are 3 bullet points. Each one is covered, kind of an equal amount for each bullet point. Okay, so just to sum up for your general, please do what we've just been doing. Analyze for the tone, the purpose, the bullets. Check whether there's any plural, so problems. So you have to think of 2 problems. The purpose is always at the top. You must have paragraphs, so usually 5 paragraphs. The last paragraph point to the future. What's the next step? Okay, so remember the tone. You have to work out what your tone is, who you're writing to, and how you start. That will tell you that. Try not to copy the topic, the words in the topic. Try to use your own words. Just start how they tell you. Don't change it. Okay, you don't need to put in a letter, an address. You just start. And don't forget to sign off with the correct tone and your name because it's a letter. All right, so just before we start academic, let's have a little quiz to see what you remember for task for my general people. And then you can have a little break after that, but please see if you can do this poll. So which 3 things do you need to think about for general? For an informal letter, is it okay to use texting language? And can you use contractions? And should you use really formal phrases? Some of these are trick questions, I have to warn you. I'll give you a minute.
Hi, Miss Jackie. We have a question here from the Q&A portion.
Sure.
Yes, stating that his or her question states that, so for an informal letter, 3 paragraphs would suffice as compared to a formal with 4 to 5?
No, usually an informal will still be 5, unless you combine some of the bullet points, because usually you'll have your purpose paragraph. Oh, I think the one I just showed you had 4, because what I did was I combined the purpose paragraph and the first bullet point. Yeah, but you can do that, or you can have 5. Purpose, bullet point 1, bullet point 2, bullet point 3, and pointing to the future. So it's up to you. Sometimes you can combine the purpose and the first bullet point in one paragraph. As long as the paragraph's not too long. So in IELTS, like if your paragraph is any more than about 8 lines long, that's a bit too long. Yeah, so either way is fine. That's a great question. Okay, shall we end the poll and just see what you've got? So what do you have to think about? Purpose, tone, and cover all the bullets. Yes, you don't have to use British spelling. That was a trick. You can use British spelling, but you can also use US spelling. Both are fine. And long sentences, it's not necessary unless you want a very high score. It's better to be correct, actually, than think you have to write these really long sentences. Because if the long sentences are full of mistakes, it's not very good. Yeah. Okay, so what about this informal? It's okay to use texting language like lol. No, don't do that. Because it's an English test, use proper English words, not texting language. Now, it's okay if it doesn't sound, oh, where's that one about contractions? Oh yeah, here. It's okay if it doesn't sound realistic as long as you use a lot of impressive vocab. Yeah, that's actually false. You want it to sound real. So don't use these big bombastic words if you're not really sure what they mean and they don't sound natural. You have to imagine that you'd really send the letter. Okay, then the last, two more. Is it okay if you use don't, can't in informal letter? Yes, it's fine. It's very good. You should use those in an informal letter. Yes. In a more formal letter, you should use really formal phrases. No, same thing. You want it to sound natural. Okay, you want it to sound modern and professional, not old-fashioned with very fancy, flowery language. No. Having the right tone is very important for the letter. Okay, great. So general people, you can have a little chill, relax for about 15 minutes or so, but please come back because then we're going to talk about the essay, and that's very important. That's like the main part of the test, okay? So please do come back. Okay, great. All right, so yeah, that was just a poll. So that's why I didn't change the slide. Okay, so we're going to talk academic now. So you academic folk, can you please tell me what do you have to do for your academic task 1? What's your job? What's your job? Yes, graph. What do you mean graph though? You have to describe something visual. Exactly. So you're given a graph, a chart, a table. You have to use words to describe that. Exactly. Yeah. So let's get into this because I do have to tell you that, like, for you dear academic folks, it is a bit more challenging than the letter. Yeah. Sorry to say. So there's a question, sorry about the general, more tips for writing formal letter and sounding casual. Yeah, have a look online at some models. So let me give you the IELTS, the official IELTS website. There will be like some models there where you get to feel the right tone. Yeah, it's good to look at models so you get the feeling, but that's a good question. All right, so let's get into academic. Now, how many words do you have to write your academic task 1? 150. And how long are you spending? At least 150, you're right. So you can write more, but you shouldn't write less. 20 minutes. So it is a challenge. So with your academic task 1, when you first learn to do it, don't worry about the time. Just learn how to do it properly, then learn how to speed up. Okay, because there's a few steps. It takes a little bit to get used to doing it. So what are you doing? You're summarizing something visual and using words to describe it. Okay, you never say why. We never try to think of why it's happening. Never. You just describe what you see. That's all. That's all your job is. Okay, so all right, let's have a look at one. So sometimes you are given one thing to describe, but sometimes you have 2 things. Don't worry. If you have 2 things, you're just going to talk about the first one, then you'll talk about the second one. Don't worry about it. But sometimes it's just one. It depends. All right, so before we write, we have to spend a minute or 2 understanding what's going on. So we have to read. The charts show the number of Japanese tourists traveling abroad between 1985 and 1995 and Australia's share of the Japanese tourist market. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. So this bit is always the same. Doesn't matter which task 1 you get, always this bit is the same. This is your job. So kind of 3 things again. You have to summarize what's going on, pull out the main important things and compare them. That's what you have to do every time you do a task 1. So now we have to think about this one and understand. So the first thing I always check between 1985 and 1995. So we're talking about when? Future? Present? What are we talking about? When are we talking about? Talking about the past, aren't we? So it's not always the past. Sometimes they're looking at the future, okay? But just always check because this will kind of affect the language that you use. So it is talking about the past. That's the first thing I always check. So now we have to understand what's going on. So we have to spend a minute or so analyzing. So Japanese tourists traveling abroad. When it's a graph, I always look at the vertical axis and check what we're counting. Number in millions. Yeah, so this is not 246, is it? It's millions. And here we have the years. Yeah. Okay, so I always ask myself some questions so I can start to work out the trend, overall trends. So overall, is the trend going up or is it going down? Up or down? So I see some questions coming in the chat. I'll answer them a bit later because we're right in the middle of this. Going up, yes. Now, I mean, there's a few changes here, but overall it's going up, isn't it? If you look at the start and you look at the end, it's definitely gone up. So now we have to look at the important points. We have to pull out, remember our job is to pull out the main features. So the first main feature is the start, obviously. So where are we at the start? Can you say approximately is a good word to use? Approximately how many million? Approximately 5, around 5 million. Yep. And then what about at the end? Where are we? Approximately 15. Yeah, around about 15 million. Yeah. Okay, so if you use approximately, then you're fine, you know, you're safe. Okay, so where is the peak? We always need to find the peak, the highest point. So where's the peak in this one? Which year? Which year is the peak? Yeah, this one, the end. Yep. Now, are there any other interesting things that we should mention? Because if it just is continually going up, we don't have to mention every year. In fact, that would be extremely boring. We only really need to mention where it changes. So you tell me which year is important to talk about. Which year should we talk about? Yeah, this year. 1990 to 1991. That's right. We need to mention that because the trend changed. Then maybe you could talk about this where it's kind of the same, a plateau. They didn't in the model answer here, but you could kind of mention that if you wanted to, and then it went up again. Okay, so we're going to highlight this, the start, the end. You might want to highlight this. Okay, now let's look at this other one. Australia's share of Japan's tourist market. So what does that mean? How many of these Japanese tourists went to Australia? So again, we look at vertical. Now careful, this is not millions, is it? It is now percent. Okay, so very small. So again, we've got years. We look at the start, whoa, very few, only 2%, right? And overall, oh, we have to do our overall question. Is it overall up or overall down? What do you think? Overall up? Yeah, kind of pretty much up, yeah. Now let's look at the last year. We're at the start, we're very low, 2%. At the end, we're what number roughly? About 5%, yeah. And now where's the peak in this one? Which year is the peak? 94, so it's different, isn't it? So we're going to have to highlight that because the peak is different from the end. So the peak is about 6%, isn't it? Any other years that are interesting that we want to mention where it changed? Yes, so around here, 89 to 90, we're going to want to mention this as well. Good. So we have now selected the main features that we're going to talk about. Great. So now we're ready to write, aren't we? Because remember, we have to do this fast because we've only got 20 minutes. Okay, Noor, you're saying you can relate to that 80 to 90 economy. This is what we actually should not do. You can never connect it to real life and never interpret. We never say why. We just describe what we see. That's our job. Never, ever interpret. Okay, you will lose marks. So it's great that you asked that question. All right, so let's think about, so again, with the task 1 academic, we have 3 jobs. We need to write an introduction. We need to pull out the main features, which we've already done. So now we need to write them down. And we have to have this thing called an overview. Okay, so let's talk about what all these are. So first we have to do the introduction. Remember, you only have 20 minutes. So the fastest way is to paraphrase. What does that mean? Just change as many words as you can. Don't copy it because that's not your words, but change them. So charts, chart and graph. Show, compare. The number of Japanese tourists traveling abroad, the number of Japanese who spent their holidays overseas. So it's the same meaning, but just change the words. That's the fastest way to do the introduction. Okay. Next paragraph, we need that thing called the overview. So I'll read it to you and then explain what it is. Overall, despite the relatively small proportion of Japanese tourists coming to Australia, the Japanese tourist market corresponded closely with the growth in Japanese tourism overseas generally, with a trebling of both in the 10-year period. So what are we doing? We are just describing the main trends in this graph and this graph. But can you see any hard numbers? Can you see any hard data there? Percents or actual numbers, millions. Can you see that, any of that in this paragraph? No, right? So the overview has no hard data. It has trebling, but we don't know what the numbers are. 10-year period could be between any dates, right? So that's okay, but we don't have any data in the overview. We just describe what's going on generally. Yeah, so overall, so very few came to Australia, but the Japanese tourist market corresponded closely. So it grew along with the growth in Japanese tourism generally. Okay, so we describe both, everything, just generally what's happening. That's right, no, we don't interpret, we just report what we see. That's it. Okay, now, so we've done our introduction and overview. So the next paragraph is we should describe with lots of data. Now we have to describe so that actually the examiner could read your report and then draw. So we need lots of numbers now. Overview, no numbers. Then we have lots of numbers. Now, when you have two things like this, the easiest way to do it is just describe this one and then describe this one. Otherwise, you get into a big mess and you don't have enough time. Okay, so this is the easiest way. So let's talk about this one first. And it's exactly what you pulled out before. In 1985, only about 5 million Japanese traveled abroad, after which the number increased steadily. By 1990, the figure had more than doubled to 11 million. Apart from a slight drop the following year to approximately 10 million, the upward trend continued until the end of the period when numbers reached over 15 million. Okay, so pulled out all the main things. Okay, let's look at the other one. While Australia was the destination for under 2% of Japanese tourists in 1985, the percentage had risen to over 6%. That's the peak, right? In 1994. The proportion grew consistently apart from a slight fall in 1990, 4.5% to 4%. So we need to give the numbers, give the data. After reaching its 1994 peak, the percentage declined marginally to 6% in 1995. Okay, so can you see that all the important figures have been mentioned with numbers and dates? But we haven't quite finished yet. We have one more job that I want to point out. They've done it in this one. Can you remember the third thing we have to do is comparing? So can you spot, if you look at this first paragraph, can you spot some comparing language? The examiners will be looking for it. Can you spot it? While, yeah, that one's down here. How about this top paragraph? There is some comparing language, like before and, don't want to say the word, before and. More than double, yes, you can say that, but how about after which? That's comparing the before and after. And apart from, exactly. So that's comparing language. Other useful comparing phrases: in comparison, in contrast, similarly, yeah? So while, which what you picked out here, while, and here's another, apart from. Before, after, all those are comparing, and you must do that. That's your third job. Okay, you must have some comparing language. So there's a question here, can we compare the differences in percentage and numbers, or in numbers in comparing the data? So you just use what's on the chart. So this one here had percentage of, it's not labeled here, but it was in percentage, right? And this one was millions. So you would use millions for the first one and percentage for the second one. That's the easiest way to do it. It's not a maths test, so you don't need to start like calculating numbers. Yeah. Now, one other thing I want to point out is the vocab. Remember the examiner's looking at your vocab. So you know, we could just, a lot of people say, oh, it rose, it fell, it increased, it decreased. It's okay. But can you see how we use these adverbs and adjectives to make it more interesting? Increase steadily, telling how it increased. Slight drop. Yeah, not a drop, but a slight drop. Yeah. So here, can you spot anything in this paragraph that's quite nice? Proportion grew consistently. Yeah, had risen. Had risen doesn't have an adverb or adjective. That's okay. Slight fall. Declined marginally. Yeah, very nice. Yep. And one other thing is, please remember that you have to say what it rose and fell to. So it had more than doubled to. You can't just say more than doubled. But to what? Yeah, a slight drop to. Okay, so please say what it went from and to, so that the examiner could draw it. Yeah, so someone's asking about respectively. So if you mention two like different kinds of numbers, like it rose to, so here, like if you had two things and they said it rose to 20% and 30% respectively, it means this one and that one. Yeah. So, you know, just say you had a different graph and you're talking about people with dogs and cats, and the numbers rose from 10 to 20, 20 to 30 respectively. It means you're talking about dogs and cats, like that, referring to both of those things if you want to use respectively. Do you think it's possible to have a really high fluctuative numbers on a graph? They create the graphs so that they're kind of, there's a pattern to them so that you can describe them. But sometimes there's a big fluctuation, then you just describe what you see. Yeah, so you could say it dropped significantly, or it dropped drastically. Yeah, sometimes there is a huge drop. So you just describe what you see. Okay, so just to review, when you do your task 1, first you rewrite the topic. That's your introduction, paraphrase. Then don't forget your overview. Yeah, no numbers, just describe everything generally in 1 or 2 sentences, the main trends. Then we describe everything in a lot of detail with lots of data from and to, remembering to compare. And then, because this one we have 2 things, then we talk about the second graph, comparing, lots of data, nice vocabulary. That's basically how we do it. Respectively is one of your favorites. Well, you can use respectively. Go ahead. It's totally fine. Okay, so now you don't always get a graph. That's the thing. That's why academic task 1 is a bit challenging, because sometimes you get this, a table. Okay, so let's have a look. It's still the same. Okay, this part's the same, right? Summarize, select and report main features and compare. Yeah, so that's still our job. Now we have to spend, again, some time understanding what's going on. What we want to do is work out how we're going to organize the information. And what we should try to do is put the ones with the same trend together and the ones with the different trend together. Yeah, we need to group the information. So let's see what we're dealing with. Table shows percentage of students who attended different types of secondary schools between 2000 and 2009. So again, we're dealing with, which time frame are we dealing with? Past again, yeah. So often it's past, but always check. Okay, so now we have to work out what's going on here. So we've got 3 years. Specialist schools, what's the trend? 12, 11, 10%. Up or down? Remember, we always look at the up and down. Down, but just marginally, right? Just a tiny bit, just only 2%. Grammar schools, what happened? 24, 19, 12. Oh, it fell, right? Now, this is where you can try to have more interesting language. So we could say it dropped from 24% to 12%. That's okay, but what's a more interesting way? So you can say 24% in 2000, and what happened? What's another way to describe 24 to 12? It halved. Yeah, that would be interesting. As long as you say it was 24 to start with, then if you say halved, then we know it's 12, right? So that's a bit more interesting, isn't it? But so it did drop dramatically, that's right. Volunteer schools, again, as you're all pointing out, boom, it decreased by more than half, didn't it? Yeah. Now, because there's this, the trend is the same, we don't really have to mention this middle one. Yeah, because it's all going, it didn't fluctuate. Now, community schools, what happened? 12, 32, whoa, went the other way, right? So it increased almost 5 times, didn't it? Almost 60%. Yeah, okay, so when we describe, naturally, we're going to talk about these 3 together and this one separately because it's different. So you always have to work out which one's the same and which ones are different, and they will purposely structure it like that for you. All right, so now let's look at the model. Okay, so same thing applies. We start first by paraphrasing the topic. The table illustrates percentage of school children attending 4 different types of secondary school from. So try to change the words, don't copy the topic. Now here's our overview. Sometimes we can start in general. We can see that the specialist grammar and voluntary control schools experience declines. Whereas, oh, what's that? That's a comparing word that we want. The community school became largest providers of secondary school education during the same period. Any data here? Can you see any hard data? No, right? Yeah. So, good. So that's the overview. So now we start describing. So we describe the 3 that all fell, right? To begin, linking word. The proportion in voluntary control schools fell from just over half to only 20% from 2000 to 2009. So just over half, see, 52%, that's a different way of saying it. A more interesting way. Similarly, oh, comparing word, the relative number of children in grammar schools, which was just under 1/4, it's a nice way to say that, isn't it? Different way of saying it. Dropped by half, like we said, in the same period. As for the specialist schools, the relatively small percentage of pupils attending this type of school, which was 12%, also fell, though not significantly. See, just 2 percentage points. However, comparing word, while another comparing word, the other 3 types of school declined in importance. The opposite was true in the case of community schools. In fact, while only a small minority of 12% were educated in these schools in 2000, the figure increased to well over half of all pupils during the following 9 years. Okay, so this is 176 words, so it's fine, a bit more than 150. And you do not need a conclusion. Unless you want one, you don't need a conclusion. You can just end. Can you spell percent as percent? Yeah, you can spell percent as 2 words, 1 word, or a symbol, whatever you like. Can we change whereas with while? Yeah, you can. It's good to mix it up. So if you use whereas in one paragraph, try to use while in another paragraph. Try to use a range of words, not repeating the same words. Yeah, so you need to talk about how community schools became more popular, but don't say why. You don't say why, just report the information. Okay, so one more type we're going to have a quick look at is sometimes percentage and percent. No, not percentage. You wouldn't say 22%. That's not right. Yeah, you could say a large percentage, because percentage is the noun. Yeah, but 22%, not 22%. That's not correct. Yeah, so word count. So that's why if you use percent, that's 2 words. If you use percent as 1, that's 1 word. So you would get more words if you say percent. Yeah, so there's a word count on the computer test, but there's no word count for paper-based. So I'll talk about what to do, how to count words for paper-based later. All right, so sometimes you get this, it's a process. So this is different. Personally, I feel this is easier. Yeah, because you don't have to interpret. All you do is you just describe what you're looking at. And a process has these arrows, goes step by step by step by step like that. Okay, so people worry about the overview, but it's very easy. So the first thing to do again is read what we're dealing with. Diagram shows process with bricks manufactured by building industry. Okay, now we have to understand what's going on. So you have to look carefully and understand, and you are supposed to mention everything on here. Yeah, so the challenge is to try to change it so you're just not copying the words. So see digger, you can say it is dug up. The clay is dug up by a large digger. So packaging, you could say it is packaged. Then at least you're changing the form of the word. So that's good. All right, so let's understand what's going on. So digger, digging up the clay, then it goes over to this grid, shaking through onto a roller. It goes along the roller. Then sand and water are added. Then two options, can be cut with a wire cutter into bricks. So the mixture is cut into a wire cutter into bricks, or it goes into a mold to make bricks. Then boop, we come down to drying oven, 24 to 48 hours. How could we say that in a more interesting way? 24 to 48 hours is 1 to 2 days. Yeah, so try to use synonyms. It's a big secret for the whole of IELTS. So we go over to this kiln, moderate temperature, high temperature, cooling, again, 42 to 72 hours. We could say 2 to 3 days. It's packaged and then delivered. That's it. That's what we're going to talk about. And you're right, Noor, we're going to use a lot of words to talk about the sequence. So people, it can be a bit boring because people say and then, and that's a bit repetitive. So instead we want to do exactly what you said, Noor, is to say like the next step following this, subsequently, different words to describe the steps. Now the overview, how do you do that? The easiest way is just to say how it starts and how it ends and how many steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 steps, approximately 7 steps, beginning with digging up the clay, finishing with delivery. And if you want to, you can think about how the different stages. So you could say, you know, preparing and then heating and then delivery, something like that. If you want to think about how the different stages are. And that would be your overview. Okay, so let's again look at a model. So the diagram outlines how bricks are manufactured from extraction of raw clay to delivery of bricks. The process involves clearly defined steps. So this one, they put the overview at the end, and that is also fine. You can put it there if you prefer. I prefer it up here at the top. Why? Because the examiner is looking for it. And I want to make it easy for the examiner. So I prefer it up here, but you can put it down here. So overall, brick making comprises 7 steps. These steps involve different processes, namely refining and forming the clay, drying the clay, and firing in the oven. Okay, so just the overall steps, not in detail. But then here, these 2 paragraphs, we're just describing everything in detail. First, the raw clay is extracted from a quarry by a large digger. The clay is then refined by separating larger pieces from smaller ones using a metal grid. The refined clay is conveyed via a belt on rollers to be mixed with sand and water, and on like that. Now notice that we're using is extracted, is molded, is refined. This is called passive. We use a lot of passive in the process. Yeah, because we don't want to say who's doing it, like men extract or the digger extracts. Sounds funny. So we just use passive. Okay, so don't worry about the process. It's really not that hard. In fact, I think it's easier. Okay, just to review, so you must have your 150 words minimum, no maximum, but don't spend too long on your task 1. You want to try to get good at it so you do it in 20 minutes. You must have your overview, spend some time pulling out the main information. And then when you're reporting the data, you have lots of numbers. Remember to compare while, whereas, comparison, in contrast, similarly, and use it. Often your comparing words become your linking words. So paragraphs, we still have to have paragraphs, usually 3 or 4 paragraphs in the task 1. And checking for mistakes, we'll talk a bit more about that later. Okay, so some mistakes that people make in the task 1 academic, they forget the numbers. They just say it rose, it fell, it increased. No, from what to what? You must put that in. So sometimes people will try to say why. Oh, lots of tourists are coming to Australia because they want to visit the koalas. No, we never interpret, never say why, just describe what you see. You don't have to describe everything except process you do, but the graph, just where it changes, like if it's the same trend, you don't need to mention every number. Yeah. And We must have that overview with no data. So when will we use well under, just under, rough in approximation? So it would depend what the number is. So if it's like, just say it was 20%. No, just say it was, just say the data was 50%. No, sorry, just say the data was 30%. You could say well under 50%, but it's probably not very accurate. If you're not sure, it's better just to report the actual number. Yeah, and then we just use approximately when, if you're looking on the graph, you can't quite tell, is it 5, is it 6? We just use approximately. So I don't worry too much about that. Yeah, it's better if you know the exact number to use the exact number. But if you can also, like the one we looked at, it dropped by half. So we knew it was 24 to 12, right? It dropped by half. Yeah, but we have to say the first number. So it started at 24% and it dropped by half. Okay, so can we have the quiz for the academic? Yeah. All right, so just to see what you remember, what should you not include? Should you cover every piece of data? And do you need a conclusion? Okay, I'll just let this run a bit longer. Now we're going to move on and talk about the essay now. So I hope general people are back because we're going to talk about this all together. Because even if the topics are a bit different for general and academic, the whole method is the same. All right, just because of timing, I'm just going to stop the poll. Let's have a look. Which should you not include? Yes, interpretation. Don't interpret. You need your introduction. You need your overview. You need to report the data. Should you cover every single piece of data? No, that's right. Only the main trends. But process, you have to mention everything. Should you include a conclusion? Yeah, this is interesting. This is optional. You don't have to have a conclusion in task 1 academic, but if you want one, you can. If you need more words, you can have one, but you don't need one. Great. All right, so let's get on and talk about the essay because the essay is worth 66%, a lot more. Yeah. So the essay, yes. So the essay is the most important part. So you don't want to get stuck on your task 1. You want to try to do it well and move on. So how many words are we writing for the essay? How many words? 250. Yeah, minimum. Of course, you can write a bit more and you should spend about 40 minutes on it. Yeah. And although that can feel like a lot in the time, like, oh, 250 words, that is the shortest essay in the world. If you think about an essay you write at university, 3,000-4,000 words, 250 words is nothing. So you have to really be focused with your essay. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. Now, let's just review the scoring so we remember. The examiner's looking at, did you answer the question? Did you stay on the topic? A lot of people lose marks in the essay because they panic and they don't stay on the topic. So this also becomes very important in the essay. You must have nice, clear paragraphs. You must use your linking words to make it flow. Your vocab is important, what words you're using. The essay is more formal writing. So try to use like more formal language. You wouldn't want to put like baby, honey, hubby. You wouldn't put that in the essay. It's more formal language. And the grammar again. So grammar, we have to think about being correct, complex sentences. And I forgot to tell you, we also have to think about punctuation, full stops, capital letters, commas, all that the examiner looks at under grammar. And of course, vocab is spelling as well. All right, so our essays are usually divided into 2 parts like this. The topic, what we're talking about, and our instructions, what we have to do. So let's have a look at a few examples. So here's our topic. International tourism has brought enormous benefit to many places. At the same time, there is concern about its impact on local inhabitants and the environment. So that's what we're talking about, international tourism and how it's affected people and the environment. Okay, now here are our instructions. This is the most important part because that's what we have to do. Yeah, do the disadvantages of international tourism outweigh the advantages? Yeah, so that's our job. We have to talk about whether there are more disadvantages or more advantages. So this is asking our opinion, this one. Okay, let's look at a different one. So here's our topic. In many countries, very few young people follow the news. What do you think are the causes of this? What can you suggest to encourage more young people to follow the news? So they're the two questions that we have to answer. What do you think are the causes? Like why very few young people follow the news? And what can we think of to get more young people to follow the news? So that's what we have to do. So this part with the instructions or questions, that's the most important part because we must do those to stay on the topic. Now, your job always in the essay is we have to give reasons and examples. This appears on every question. We have to think of reasons and examples, okay, and 250 words. Okay, so always analyze like this. We must analyze the topic and work out what our instructions are. So, okay, remember this one we just looked at? In many countries, very few young people follow the news. What are the causes? What can you suggest? Now, there's something very wrong with this. Can you tell me why? I'll read it to you. It is not true that people avoid reading newspapers or watching the news on television. In my country, most people do endeavor to find out about the news. Why do I believe this is so? Because I see newspapers everywhere, so there must be a demand for such publications. Yes, Agnesius, I think you're on the right track. Okay, using a rhetorical question is okay. I don't personally like it, but it's not wrong to do that in the essay. So this is giving their person's opinion, isn't it? It's not true that, did they ask you for the opinion here? Is there like, what is your opinion? Do you agree? Is that here in these questions? No. So this is not answering the question that was given. You have gone off topic and you will lose marks. Okay, so really, this is very important. Just do what it tells you to do. So our job in this essay, think of reasons. Think of reasons why people don't follow the news and give suggestions. We don't argue with the topic because they didn't tell us, do you agree? Remember, IELTS is all about following instructions, okay? So be very careful. Always read your instructions very carefully. Now, I love this slide, so please feel free to take a screenshot. I took this from a video on the IDP website, so you can also find that video. It's very helpful. In IELTS, there are certain types of questions. You know, the second part with the instructions, there are certain types that keep coming up. The topics all change all the time, but the type of question is often the same. And here are some of the common types. Okay, so sometimes you have, to what extent do you agree or disagree? This is asking your opinion. And here, maybe you can take a screenshot or a photo of this slide. Yeah. So what was I going to say? Yeah, so when we have this topic, this is a good suggestion for your structure. So the second thing we have to start thinking about in IELTS is important. It's your essay structure, your paragraphs. Remember, you must have paragraphs. So this type of question, agree or disagree, often 5 paragraphs are good. Introduction, remember reasons, we always have to have reasons. Reason why you agree, another reason, considering the other side, and conclusion. This is a nice, clear structure. Another type is discuss both views and give your own opinion. So here's the structure for this. I'm going to talk about this one, so I won't go through it now. Why is this so? Give reasons and solutions. That's like the one with the news, isn't it? So a good structure is introduction, reasons why, another reason, the solutions, conclusion. Yeah, nice, clear structure. Oh, here's the one about disadvantages of tourism outweigh the advantages. So introduction and your position. So saying if you think there are more advantages or disadvantages. and giving advantages. If you said more advantages, then advantages, disadvantages, conclusion. Yeah. So these are giving you some nice, clear structure. And the instructions in the essay, the topic, not the topic, the instructions or the question, it will help to give you your structure. Okay, so we're going to talk about that now. Remember I said we're going to talk about this type of essay? Can you write your opinion in the conclusion paragraph? If they asked you for your opinion, yes, but if it was that one about news, no, because they never asked you for your opinion. So don't use it, don't put it. Okay, please, because you'll lose marks. They didn't ask you for your opinion. Yeah, so I know you have to, it's hard, you have to follow the instructions. Okay, so discuss, this is the type of essay, this one. Discuss both these views and give your own opinion. So this type of essay, how many things do you have to do in this type of essay? Discuss both these views and give your own opinion. Not actually 5, not actually 2, 3, yes, 3 things. Okay, so both these views, so there are going to be 2 views. And then what do you actually think? And of course, your opinion can be a mixture. It's totally fine. So in this type of essay, there are always 2 views. And the first view is always some. Some people think that wild animals should not be kept in zoos. Okay, so view 1, wild animals, no zoos. Others believe there are good reasons for having zoos. So view 2, zoos can be important. Okay, then the third thing is, what do you think? And maybe you think a mixture, like sometimes zoos are good and sometimes they're bad. That's fine. It can be a mixture, but it's whatever your opinion is. So when we think about the structure for this essay, so you start with the introduction. You can present your opinion, but no reasons. Don't give any reasons. You can present your opinion if you want to. Then you look at view 1, reasons and examples. Remember, we always have to give reasons and examples. So then we look at view 2, give reasons and examples, and then we give our opinion with reasons. Can you use I or me in the essay? Yes, this type of essay, you can totally use I, me. If you don't want to, you can use passive. It's up to you, but it's fine to use I in this essay. And then of course, the conclusion at the end. Yeah, summing. So we'll talk about what goes in the conclusion. So this essay is a model and it got a band 7. Okay, so band 7 in writing, I mean, in IELTS is good, right? Band 7 is a good score in the writing, but it's not an 8 or a 9, it's a 7. And we'll talk about why later on. But one of the nice things about this essay is the structure is very clear. Okay, so I won't go through it in detail right now, but first paragraph is the introduction. So wild animals are kept in zoos. At present, zoos are a tourist attraction. I believe wild animals should not be kept in zoos. So they've given their opinion, but they haven't said why. They just presented their opinion. So the first part, the introduction, is kind of just like a general statement. So you'll see that there are spelling mistakes. That's partly why it doesn't get higher than a 7. Okay, so first paragraph, there are many good reasons for having zoos. So they've talked about view 2 first. That's okay. So there's a topic sentence. It tells you what the paragraph is about. There are many good reasons for having zoos. Most importantly, they attract tourists and make money for the city. So they're giving their reasons. We won't go through this in detail. However, many people feel wild animals should be free. So the next paragraph is view 1. Wild animals should not be in zoos. So then there are reasons here. Both views put forward valid points. However, I strongly believe zoos are no place. So they're going to give that's that person's opinion and why. And then in conclusion, although people believe zoos are good places, okay, so just restating the points and your opinion. Okay, so a very nice, clear structure. Exactly, Ala, there are mistakes in this essay. That's why it's a band 7. There are spelling mistakes. There are other mistakes as well, which we'll look at later. That's why this model that they've shown us got a band 7, because yes, that's a spelling mistake. Now, remember that after we've analyzed the question, then we think about the structure, nice, clear paragraphs. We also have to use our linking words to make it flow. So this essay that got 7, it has some nice linking words. At present, and is a linking word. Why is them there? What is them referring to? So I believe wild animals should not be kept in zoos and there should be alternative ways to see them. What's them? The wild animals, yeah. So this is good in IELTS. This is called reference. We're not repeating wild animals again. We use a pronoun. So that's good to be able to do that. So most importantly, introducing a reason, unless, so it's another linking word to show contrast. For example, again, reference these animals, therefore, summing up. So nice linking words, right? However, because, also, both views put forward valid points. However, so contrasting. In conclusion, although, as far as I'm concerned. So nice linking words throughout the essay, but not really advanced ones. So it's not coming up to 8, but correct and quite well done. So that's a 7 for the linking words. So you must have these linking words. All right, so that was one type of essay. Discuss both views and give your own opinion. Let's have a look at a different type now. So remember, we look at the topic, at the instructions. To what extent do you agree or disagree with this statement? This is very common in academic, this type of question. So what are we agreeing or disagreeing with? Now we have to look at our topic. Some people say that living in a house is much better than living in an apartment. Okay, so this one is asking for our opinion. Now we can give our opinion. I agree, I disagree. But careful, extent means how much? So is it strongly agree, strongly disagree, mostly, partially? What do you think? Living in a house is much better than living in an apartment. What's your opinion? So the first thing you have to do is work out your own opinion. So if I ask you, let me know in the chat. Do you mostly agree? Do you partially agree? Do you mostly disagree? Let me know. Agree. So when it's extent like this, you need to say how much. Partially, mostly, strongly, quite a lot, partly disagree. Okay, good, good. All right, so that's great. So you all have an opinion. That's awesome. Okay, so now let's think about the structure. So we start with our introduction, of course. We'll talk about what goes in there in a minute. And you have to also state your view. So a lot of you have said, it's okay to partially agree. It's totally fine. It's whatever you think. So if you do partially agree, then you'd put that, I partially agree with this. But now you have to think of your reasons and your examples. Yeah, so if your position is partially agree, you'll give your reasons and examples why. Then I think you should consider the other side. Like if you partially agree, well, what's on the disagree side? It makes a stronger essay. And then the conclusion. So yeah, so that's a good structure. So let's have a look at, okay, bye, Huyen. I'm glad we covered the academic for you. Can you answer it depends? Yeah, you can sit on the fence, but then you have to give your reasons and examples. You can say you can take any position, but you must think of your reasons and examples. So actually, sorry, before we go through the model, I want to ask you, yeah, so we have to think of our reasons and examples. So quite a lot of you said that you mostly agree that house is better. So can you write some of your reasons in the chat? So you have to train yourself to think of your reasons. Why? Why do you think living in a house is better? So this is what you have to do before you write your essay. Quickly think of your reasons. So it's good to train yourself. Why is it better? You said it's better to live in a house, quite a lot of you. So why? You can save more money if you live in a house. Really? Isn't a house more expensive? Oh, because you own it. Okay. But then you have to explain that, because living in a house doesn't necessarily mean you own it. So you'd have to explain that. More privacy. You can have more people living together. Yes, exactly. More freedom. You can have a spacious garden. Yeah, all those are great. Fantastic. Now, why might it be better to live in an apartment? Some of you said it's better to live in an apartment. Some people, why could that be better? Easier to clean, yes. You can get a loan to buy the house, same price paid as an apartment. Okay, careful that you stay on the topic, like, because I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. But anyway, you have your less responsibility, more affordable to live in an apartment, maybe, yes. Okay, good, all good reasons. Okay, so let's have a look at another model. So this one is a higher level. So this one probably got about an 8, maybe even an 8.5. Okay, so let's see, the introduction is like a general statement. Everyone wants to live in comfort. Some people find independent houses more convenient, while others prefer modern day apartments. I disagree that living in a house is more advantageous than living in an apartment. See the position? They disagree. To start with, we are moving towards the culture of nuclear families where most adults work. Life is more stressful than ever, and people have less time on hand. Given these circumstances, it is much easier to manage an apartment. So that's the first reason, easier to manage. Now, here's an example. Remember, you have to give examples. For instance, most apartments have housekeeping facilities that take care of all the cleaning. Yeah, so that's the first reason. So now another reason with a linking word. Additionally, apartments are usually gated communities, a lot more secure to exemplify. So there's an example. Most apartments would have access cards. So overall security parameters are better. Okay, last reason, furthermore, apartments have common facilities. So that's the third reason. And then you don't have to have an example for every reason, but you need to explain what you mean. So here the person explains. One does not have to travel outside of their home to access these facilities, result in a lot of time saving. Parents feel it's easier to allow kids to play freely. Okay. Now considering the other side. However, living in an independent house does have its own advantages. So at least considering that it can be sometimes better in a house. They're certainly more spacious and owners can freely utilize and modify the space. Yeah, so just one or two reasons short. To conclude, apartments and houses have their set of pros and cons. However, I believe apartments satisfy the needs of our modern lifestyle better than independent houses. Okay, just summarizing everything. Okay, so can you get the feeling of how you do it with reasons and examples? Okay, last one we're going to look at, we're going to work through this slowly together. So every year, thousands of students go overseas to study. Although many benefit from the experience, others go home disappointed. What are the benefits and drawbacks of studying in another country? So here are our instructions. So how many things do we have to do in this essay? How many things? 2, exactly. So this is quite a straightforward one. This is more like a general topic. Talk about the benefits and talk about the drawbacks. So let's think about the structure. So we'd have our introduction. I'll tell you what to put in the introduction. Then we think about the benefits, reasons and examples. No, okay, so someone's asking, do you have to give your opinion? Does it ask you for your opinion in this essay? Asking for your opinion? No, so you don't give your opinion. Please don't give your opinion. It will pull your score down. It didn't say, and what's your opinion? Yeah, so we'll talk about benefits, reasons and examples of benefits. We'll talk about drawbacks, and then we'll conclude. That's it. Okay, just follow the instructions, please. Now, the next step is that a lot of people don't like doing, but it makes a much better essay, is brainstorm. Like I said, think of your reasons. You will have some scrap paper. Very quickly jot down your reasons. Otherwise, people who don't do this, they tend to repeat the same reason over and over. It doesn't make a good essay. So you tell me, what are the benefits of studying in another country? Type in the chat. It's good to train yourself to do this. What are the benefits? Different culture. Yep. Wider perspective. Yeah, new study culture. Yes. Different experiences. Yes. What else? What are different ones? Personal development. Yes. Maybe independence is a good one. Yes. Or more opportunities, maybe for, networking and that kind of thing. Global perspective. Exactly. So what about the drawbacks? What are the drawbacks of studying in another country? Homesickness. Yep. Language barriers. Costly. Yes. All of those are great. Okay, so here's my ideas similar to yours. Exposure to other cultures, greater independence, networking, culture shock, maybe discrimination, maybe distractions. Like you go overseas, it's like, woohoo, party time, right? So please brainstorm like that. Okay, so once we've done that, now we have to think, we've thought about our paragraphs, and now we have to structure our essay. So we need to think about the introduction, what goes in the introduction, what goes in the body, what goes in the conclusion. So introduction, we're going to introduce the topic, and sometimes we have to give our position if it's agree or disagree, right? So each paragraph, you need your topic sentence, which says what the paragraph is about. Then you need your reasons and your examples. In conclusion, we just summarize all the points in one paragraph. So introduction, you can do it this way. You can literally just change the words like academic task 1. Every year, annually, thousands of students, a vast number of students, go overseas, venture abroad to study, to pursue their studies. Yeah, you can do the introduction like that. It's okay. That's one way. So another way is that you can sort of just say a general statement about the topic. So these days, it often seems that almost every new graduate attained their qualification abroad. Many find a study experience rewarding, but some are less satisfied. No, you don't mention the drawbacks and benefits in the introduction, because that's what you're going to talk about in the essay, right? So you put that in your body. Okay, so let's talk about the body now. So you need a clear topic sentence, what the paragraph is about, and then your reasons and examples. Okay, so the first paragraph, we're talking about the benefits, right? So studying abroad offers students a number of benefits. That's what the paragraph is about, benefits. Now I use a linking word to introduce my first reason from my brainstorm, remember? Firstly, it facilitates exposure to new and diverse cultures. That was my first reason. But now I need to expand. I need to explain my reason or give an example. Students can immerse themselves in the lifestyle and traditions of their host country and may also have the opportunity to discover new worldviews and cultural practices of fellow students. Okay, so I explain my reason. Now another reason, in addition, being alone in an unfamiliar place and having to solve issues of day-to-day living can foster a strong sense of resilience and independence. That was my second reason, independence. For example, negotiating rent, transport, and food will teach a young person valuable life skills. Can you see that my reason is my example is quite short, and it just supports my reason. We don't tell a long story. The example just should support your reason and sort of expand your reason. Yeah, okay. So I haven't given the third reason here just because of time. Yeah, but you could have a third reason as well from your brainstorm. Now, the next paragraph, conversely, there can be several drawbacks. So what's this paragraph about? Drawbacks. So it's very clear to the examiner, oh, this paragraph is drawbacks. One of these could be confronting sense of culture shock, for example. Okay, so then giving the example. Further to this, so this is my second drawback, a dynamic environment in a foreign location might lead to a range of distractions. And then expand on the reason. Nightlife, other young people, and relative anonymity may be irresistible and have an adverse effect on the student's academic pursuits. Okay, so giving the reason and then an example or expanding. And now our conclusion, we just summarize everything in one paragraph. In conclusion, opting to complete tertiary study abroad can offer increased exposure and opportunities to develop independence. However, it cannot be denied that overseas studies also leads to culture shock and too many distractions. Each person needs to consider their own temperament and circumstances before making this life-changing choice. Okay, so the conclusion, you just kind of summarize all the points. Sometimes in the conclusion, you can point to the next step. You could say, like, in future, it may be that more and more students study overseas. That's fine to point to the future. Can you use drawback when the word is given in the question? If you use it once, it's fine. You can use it once or twice. You just don't want to keep repeating the same word. That is one of your challenges, to try to have a range of vocabulary. Okay, so, which was just what I came to, thinking about the vocab. So we need to have a range. You don't want to keep repeating the words from the topic. Yeah, so we also have to think about our spelling. So in the essay, we want to be a bit more formal with the language, not too slang, not too informal. Now, the other thing that to think about with the essay, with the vocab, remember we looked at this essay before that got a 7? It has some really nice vocab. You need to think about words that go together well. So tourist attraction, that's correct, and it sounds nice. Alternative ways, correct. We call this collocation. Words that go together nicely. Educational importance, oh, very nice. Natural habitat, these are all nice collocations, putting words together correctly. Rare species, sounds good in English. There are also some more unusual words. Underestimate, cruel, precious. Yeah, the reason it doesn't get an 8, all of these words are kind of almost like level 8 words, but there are spelling mistakes here, and there are some of the words are a bit repeated and a bit simple, but there are some really good examples of vocabulary in this essay. Noor, you're asking about the conclusion, if you should give your opinion. If the essay asks you for your opinion, then please put your opinion in the conclusion. If it doesn't ask you for your opinion, you can sort of maybe speculate about the future if you need more words. But really, the conclusion, you just summarize everything in one paragraph. Okay, so let's also think a bit about grammar, because we haven't talked that much about grammar. So remember, we want complex sentences. So here, look, global warming is a phenomenon. It is caused by increased carbon emissions. So both these sentences are fine and correct, but more impressive if we combine it into one sentence, right? Global warming is a phenomenon caused by increased carbon emissions. Ooh, a nicer sentence. What should the last sentence of the conclusion be about? I can't really tell you. It depends on the topic. You can just summarize all the points and sort of restate the topic. Have a look at different models to get the idea. There's not one rule about how it should be. That's the other thing about doing the essay that I should say. There's not only one way to do it. I've presented you one way that is very clear. But if you're a very good writer, as long as you answer the question and have good reasons and examples, you can do it in many different ways, and they're all good. Okay, there's not only one right way in the IELTS essay. Okay, so being careful about errors. So what I suggest you do with the essay, maybe you have very good grammar, you don't have to worry about this, but if your grammar isn't the best, please write like an essay and show someone who has excellent grammar. Get them to mark your mistakes. You will start to see that you have habits. Like maybe you forget and the, or maybe you forget plural, or maybe you forget the past tense. You'll start to realize what you do. So then in the test, the real exam, you can leave maybe 1 or 2 minutes at the end to quickly go through and try to spot your mistakes. That's a good idea. Yeah. So that's a suggestion for what to do with the grammar. If you're doing paper-based, don't count the words, okay? Work out how many words you're doing on a line and then work out how many lines you need to do. Don't count the words because it's a waste of time. Should you use past or present tense for the essay? Well, it depends what you're talking about. If you're talking about the past, you have to use past. But if you're presenting facts, you probably use present tense. It depends on your purpose. Is there a minimum of complex sentences? It's not really like that because it depends how correct they are. It's always a balance of complex versus accurate, right? So it's not like they count. They look at the balance overall. Yeah, so I can't really say that. Now have a look at this. This is that band 7 essay. So there are spelling mistakes, but we're not looking at the spelling here. There are also grammar mistakes, which keeps it to a 7. So if you're going to get an 8 for grammar, you can only make maybe a few little mistakes in the essay, but there are quite a few grammar mistakes. So I think maybe just because time is running out a bit, I'm going to go through these common mistakes. Usually I get people to pick them out, but okay, Cindy, we didn't talk about maps just because we don't have time. At the end, when I answer questions, I will talk to you a little bit about doing maps for Task 1 Academic. They don't come up very much. They're quite rare. So yeah, so I'll address it a bit later. Can you cross out words in paper-based. Yeah, you can cross things out, no problem. They don't care about that. Okay. So idiom and jargon for the essay, I wouldn't really use that. That's more when we speak. Yeah, we just want to have proper academic, well, not really academic, but more formal writing. So you don't need to use idioms and that kind of thing in the essay. Use them when you speak for sure. All right, so I'm just going to point out some of the mistakes. And these are common mistakes that you also might make. So they're things that you might want to spot in your own writing. So all over the world. Okay, when it's one thing, we need the definite article, the. Money for the city, that particular city. Get a chance. You could use the here as well. That would work as well. But just like a particular chance. So the Chinese panda, specific, we use the Indian tiger. In zoo, in a zoo, one of many. Okay, so articles are something that people sometimes forget, so be careful. Wild animals at their country. What should that be? In, so mistakes with prepositions. That's a common thing that people make mistakes with. So plurals. News story, just one? No, many news stories. Okay, this is a common mistake because they is not. They are. So the subject is they, the verb must agree. Okay, so these are common mistakes to look out for. All right, so just some overall remarks. So if you are doing paper-based, you can write all over your question, all over the question paper. Yeah, you can make notes, you can draw a plan, all that kind of thing. If you need more paper, ask for another sheet when you're writing. You don't have to squash it all onto one. You can ask for more paper. Okay, but you don't have time to write a rough draft and then copy it out. No, just brainstorm and then start writing. Please don't copy the instructions. Remember, use your own words. You want to have a range of vocabulary. Okay, so you don't want to just, your reasons need to be quite specific and clear. They shouldn't be too broad, but also they shouldn't be too like so detailed that it's too detailed. It just needs to be the ones that you were thinking of when we were brainstorming, they're fine. That kind of reason. When you give examples, don't tell a long story because you don't have enough words. Your example should just illustrate your reason. Is it true that it's better to write in active instead of passive? You can use either. You can use active or passive, whatever you like. Passive is a bit harder to get correct. So if your grammar is not so great, maybe try not to use so much passive because you'll probably make more mistakes. But if you want to use passive, no problem. Up to you. Okay, so there's no rule like that, as long as it's correct. Okay, so just things to remember when you do your essay. Make sure that you analyze the topic. If it has like 2 questions, make sure you answer both of those. You've got to have paragraphs, must, usually 4 or 5. And don't make them too long. If your paragraph gets to about 8 lines, just make another, then you have one more reason. Just put the reason in another paragraph. Linking words to make it flow. Check your spelling and vocab, yeah, and not slang. Yeah, so complex sentences using things like although, however, whereas, while, what else? Even though, despite, if sentences. Now, also remember your full stops, your capital letters, your commas. Okay, so just a few last few tips. Remember that task 1 is worth 66%. So don't get stuck on, task 2 is worth 66%. Don't get stuck on task 1. Finish task 1 and move on. Spend most of the time on the essay. Analyze the question. Work out, are you giving your opinion or are you discussing the points? Work out your paragraphs. What is each paragraph about? We need a range of vocab and grammar, and really vocab building, it takes time. A lot of that comes from reading widely. Yeah, we want linking words to make it flow. If you run out of time, don't put notes or bullets. You must write in full sentences and try to leave a few minutes at the end to check, like we were saying. So here are some resources that you might want to access. Oh yeah, sorry, my poll, I forgot. Just to summarize task 2. So do you have to write exactly 250 words? Do you count each word? If you run out of time, can you write bullets? I'll just let this run just a little bit longer, just because we're a bit short of time. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. Yeah, so you don't have to write exactly 250. That's the minimum. If you can write a bit more, like maybe 270, often that makes a better essay. You don't have to, but if you can, but you don't have to write 500 words either, right? Should you count each word? So don't count each word if you're doing paper-based. Count how many on a line and work out how many lines. If you run out of time, do not write notes or bullets because you will lose marks. Yeah. Okay, so if you're doing your IELTS with IDP, you can join IELTS Essentials. They have lots of different resources for you. So they have Facebook page, they have practice tests, tips on their blog, and also support videos as well. And you can also check out the IDP website. There are a lot of resources there. And I think I told you about the IELTS website, IELTS.org. Yeah, that's the official IELTS website. There are lots of resources there too. Okay, great. So yay. So we've got time for questions. And I think after that, we'll open to live questions. So over to you, Patrick. But thank you so much to everyone for your questions. And if I missed one of them, you know, feel free to ask again. So I might stop my share just so we can, yeah.
As of now, we don't have a Q&A. So I guess we will be moving to our live Q&A. So participants, you can ask your questions directly to our IELTS expert, Miss Jackie. So you just raise your hand and we will allow you to talk. Okay, once you're recognized, please state your full name and where you come from.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
No, sorry.
No problem. Okay, the first question will be coming from Richa Chahar. Hi, please state your full name and where you come from.
Hi, I'm Richa Chahar from Singapore. I want to know in the task 1 for the general, is using contractions in formal letters letter increases points, or is it's not necessary?
Okay, so in the informal letter, it is good to use contractions, yeah, because it's informal and it should sound more like you're talking. Yeah, and,
okay.
And thinking again, like we're remembering that you're writing it, imagining that you're living in Canada or New Zealand or wherever, people tend to be more informal there. So it is good in the informal letter, not the formal letter, but the informal one. Yes, please use contractions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Richa. Our next question will be coming from RD Madi. Hi, RD.
Hi, thank you for the time. My name is Ardi Mati Nugroho. I am from Indonesia. I'm asking for, can we use italic or bold or even underline on paper base or even in the computer base to bolding our word or sentence?
Okay, so for paper base, there's no real need to do that. I mean, if you want to underline a word to like sort of make emphasis, you could, but you don't have to. It's not, because it's not about the font or the format. On the computer, I actually don't know. I don't know if anyone knows whether you can do bold and underline. I'm not sure. But you don't need to. The point is actually that's not necessary. It won't help because that's not what they're looking for. So unless you have a very good reason for wanting to do that, I don't think it's necessary. It's kind of like not the main focus. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we've got a comment from Gina that you can highlight text on, you can highlight things in the reading in IELTS. Yeah, you highlight passages, but I don't know when you're writing if you can underline or bold. I'm not sure, but you don't need to anyway.
Yes, that's correct. Go ahead, Ms. Lilith.
Yeah, I don't think there is such function in computer-delivered IELTS test
Oh,
on
okay.
the writing part.
Yeah.
So basically, you can just type and you can change the font size, you know, the
That's
color,
right.
the background color, but not exactly the format.
Yeah. So if your eyes are not the best, you can make the font bigger. So that's kind of nice when you do the computer delivered test. Yeah. Yeah. I've never had that
Okay,
question before.
Okay, we proceed our next question to Ratan Hossain. Hi, Ratan.
Hi, thank you. Actually, I'm from Bangladesh. I'm staying in Malaysia. Can you hear me? Is there any problem?
Ratan, we can't hear you
Oh, I'm
clearly.
so sorry. I can't really hear you. Do you want to type it in the chat?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, it's the line's not very good.
Yeah, you can type your questions on the chat box and we're happy to answer your questions. Let's move forward to
Sorry.
another live Q&A. We have Dwi Damayanti.
Hello, good evening.
Hello.
Thank you very much for the chance. I have two questions, so is it okay?
Sure.
Okay, my first questions regarding about opinion tasks specifically for discussion. So you said that before that for discussion as SI, we need to explain both opinion, and then the last one we will give our opinion. So is it still possible for if we don't give our opinion at the beginning of the paragraph introduction, or is it just in the conclusion? That is my
okay.
question.
So, okay, sure. So that's up to you. So with the discuss both views and give your opinion, you can put your opinion in the introduction, like the one that we looked at, the model that did that. It just gave their opinion. And then they had another whole paragraph below where they explain why they had that opinion. But if you don't want to, if you want to save your opinion until that, later on, until you talk view 1, view 2, and then your opinion, that's also fine. You don't have to put it in the introduction. It's up to you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. And my second questions are still about talks 2. So in talks 2, we have to at least write down to 150 words, but in a paper based task, it's difficult to count the maximum words. But if I'm not sure about the limit word that I choose, is it still okay if I give another extra information, like giving a recommendation or suggestion, or just give a conclusion about, for example, opinion, I will give again opinion, or give a problem and solution? Or is it still okay if I just give another information like a suggestion?
I mean, after your conclusion?
Yes, after conclusion.
I think it's a bit strange. Like, so when you practice, it's good to practice making sure you're writing 250 words minimum. So usually if you can think of 3 reasons, like, if you have to talk about 2 different things, for example, if you can think of 3 reasons and examples, then you should be able to hit your 250. After your conclusion, I wouldn't then go back and talk again. It's kind of weird. Like, I wouldn't add on more. Yeah, but I mean, if you realize while you're writing that, I think it's short, then maybe you try to think of more reasons rather than have your conclusion and then add more after the conclusion. It's kind of strange. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. So it's better to give another reason.
Also, someone's saying you want to add on more onto your conclusion. Yeah, if you suddenly think, I need to add a bit more, I want to make my conclusion longer, like to get a few more words, then you could do that. You could sort of maybe talk about what might happen in the future or something like that. But it's better to actually, when you practice, if you practice and making sure that you hit 250, then after a while, how much you have to write, how long that should be. know what I mean?
Yes.
It's better to get used to writing 250 when you practice. So then you'll somehow you will know how long that should be. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. We'll
Okay.
manage it very. Thank you very.
No worries.
Okay, our next question will be coming from Gabriela Christie. Hi, Gabriela.
Hello. Good
Hi.
evening. I just want to cross-check because someone said in the chat, is it possible to use capital all over the writing section?
Yeah. If you want to write the whole thing in capital letters, you can. Yep, no problem.
Oh, it will not decrease our point or whatsoever?
It doesn't make any difference. It's just a choice. If you want to write the whole thing in capital letters, because punctuation matters, okay? So if you think your punctuation is bad and you forget your capital letters, then if you want to write everything in capital letters, you can, if you want to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it won't make any difference. Like you won't get more points or fewer points. Yeah.
Okay.
But if
Okay,
you
thank you then.
Okay, thank you, Gabriela. Our next question will be coming from Teta Muski. Hi, Teta.
Hello.
Right, hello. I have a question for the writing task 2. For the introduction part, is it better to use general statements or paraphrase?
Writing task 2, general statement. Oh, for the introduction?
Yeah, for the introduction.
Well, you know, it depends on, it's not, because the whole essay is not just marked on the introduction. So some people feel that the paraphrase, like just like changing all the words, that's a bit boring. And if your English is at an advanced level or a higher level, it's better to have your own kind of introduction, like a general statement, rather than just paraphrase the topic. But it depends on the rest of your essay, and it depends if you're running out of time, and it depends on many things. So if you're really aiming for a very high score, then maybe it's better to have your own type of introduction.
Oh, all right, thank you.
Yeah, so there's a question in the chat that is all caps okay for computer delivered? As far as I know, yes. Yeah, it's fine. It's not considered wrong spelling. Yeah.
Okay, next we proceed to this second to the last questions. First, we have Kartika Sari. Hi, Kartika.
Hello, I'm Tika from Indonesia. Hi, Jacqueline.
Hi.
Yeah, my question is, would it be okay or would it be any other points if I add additional sources? So for example, in the opinion essay, and I quote it from sources from articles or other sources, would it be any extra points or not? Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, this often happens. Like people in their essay, they put in a report in the Journal of Psychology, there 26% said this, and you know, you can tell that person just made it up. So you don't need to make up like things from pretend reports, and it won't make it better. But I mean, if you really knew something you'd read, you just happened to you just happened to have read a newspaper article and remembered that, and it was relevant, then of course you could include it. But please don't make up statistics and facts. It's not like that. Your reasons and examples, remember, just from your own experience and from what you know. Okay, so they don't have to be data. That's more for task 1 academic. Yeah, so it doesn't, in fact, often it makes it weaker. Unless it's really supporting your reason. It's much better to have nice, strong, clear reasons and relevant examples than to make up some weird studies. Yeah, it's not going to get you more points for sure. Unless, of course, you do remember something from an article and it's very relevant, then of course that would be great. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And we have our last question from our live Q&A. We have from Cindy Che. Hi, Cindy Che. You can unmute yourself.
Hi. I think you're on mute. Maybe while
Okay,
we're waiting, there was a comment in the chat that it's good to leave a line between each paragraph. I also think that's a great idea. Make it easy for the examiner to see where your paragraphs are by leaving a whole blank line. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, Miss Jackie, we have questions from our Q&A.
Yeah.
One attendee is asking for tips for the maps.
Map. Oh yeah, that's right. We were going to talk about maps. Yeah, so maps. Okay, map doesn't come up that often, so don't panic about the map. But for academic task 1, sometimes you're given a map. So the same thing applies. You just have to describe what you see. Usually with the map, there's like a past and a future. So it's like what it was like in the past and what it's like now. And you have to find the changes. So you have to describe what has changed. Usually it's like that. So you just have to pick out what the main changes are, and you can group the information that way. So maybe there's more roads, maybe there are more houses, and maybe there's like, I don't know, some other change, like they've got rid of the trees or something. Okay, but in the map, a bit like the process, you must mention everything. Yeah, but you have to work out how you're going to group the information. Also with maps, there are 2 types. So one has directions, like a compass. So if on the map you see in the corner that it has north, south, east, west, it has those symbols, then that means they want you to use that to describe. So then you have to use those kinds of direction words. So you have to use like, in the northeast, this has happened. In the south, this has happened. But sometimes they don't have the compass like that. So then you shouldn't use that. If it's just like they don't have that, then you have to use like sort of direction words like above, opposite, diagonally, below, or something like that. Yeah, to the left. Yeah. So you have to check, does it have that compass symbol or not? Yeah, so have a look at some models. Google, get on your Guru Google and find some academic task 1 map models and look at how they've been done. But it doesn't come up so often, so please don't worry about it too much. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We have another question from the Q&A box. In complex sentences, how to avoid grammatical errors, especially those concerning the subjects and the verbs?
Okay, so if you know, so grammar is something you have to work at, right? So once again, we're so lucky we have a whole world at our fingertips. So find some grammar practice websites. So have a look and find some grammar exercises, subject verb agreement, or you can have a look for IELTS, grammar for IELTS, and you have to work on that skill. So yeah, or maybe you want to work on complex sentences. So you can, you know, find some websites. There's so many out there to practice building up your skills. And if you're not sure of whether it's reputable, then look for some blog articles that tell you good IELTS grammar practice websites or something. Then they'll give you some, they will have done the work for you and picked out the good ones. Yes, we're so lucky actually. We have so many resources that we can use.
Okay, thank you. And our last question from our Q&A box. I want to ask about how to manage study IELTS effectively for self-study and how long will we achieve for better results?
Okay, so that's a great question. So this is hard to answer though, because there are many variables. It depends when your test is. It depends what score, what band you're at now, and it depends what band you want. So let's pretend that you are like your exam is maybe in a couple of months. Then it's really good to gradually build up. So first of all, you need to do practice tests, but you know, you can't do everything all at once and probably you're very busy. So every day, maybe try to spend an hour working on your IELTS. So maybe one day you do some listening and some speaking. Next day you do a writing task 1 and some reading. So you mix it up. That's one thing. And then when it comes closer to your test, like maybe 2 weeks away, then you need to start doing whole tests and doing it to time and getting used to managing the time. Okay, so then the other thing to do is surround yourself with English. That's the other way. It's not just about tests. It's about being very comfortable and natural and flexible in English. So as much as possible, listening to the radio in English, watching TV in English. If you're listening and are reading lots in English, if you're reading things like BBC and listening to BBC, then you are also getting ideas for your speaking and your writing. You're following the news. That's also very helpful. So you kind of have to make this time before your test, like you immerse yourself in English. Really, that's the best thing to do. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, by the way, before we end, I just have a personal question to Miss Jackie. What as a test taker, what should I do the night before the test? What I should read, what should I eat, what should I drink? Yeah.
That's a great question. So it depends on you. It depends on the person. But I mean, I think it's good to, you probably will be nervous, but I mean, maybe watch something like, I think by that point, there's no point in cramming and you want to be fresh. It's particularly because the first test is listening and you need to focus. So I would try not to go to bed too late actually. And I would like, whatever you do as a routine to help you relax at night, I would do that. And, you know, maybe it's nice to watch some kind of English comedy series before the night before the test. So it's English, but it's something fun and relaxing because really the night before, I think it's too late to like cram and you'll just be tired. Yeah, that would be my advice.
Okay, thank you very much. And I guess this is the end of this writing masterclass. And we hope we are able to answer all questions and your queries. But if not, please message us directly and we will get back to you with a response. Thank you for your tuning in, and a huge thank you to Miss Jackie for walking us through today's webinar and answering your questions.
My pleasure. It's always a joy.
Again,
and thanks to all of you as well.
Thank you very much, everyone, and have a great night all. Goodbye.
Thanks to the whole team, and thank you to all of you for your great questions. Take care. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Miss Jackie. Bye-bye.